Hi, my name is Lauren O'Donnell, and today I'm going to be talking about food access in the United States. So, why food access matters? Food access can influence things like nutrition, transportation costs, healthcare outcomes, and overall quality of life for the people that live in those states or counties. So, my main research question was, how does geographic location influence food access patterns across the United States? But to answer that, I broke the analysis down into a few supporting questions. So, what geographic patterns of low food access appear across the United States? How do food access rates differ across different demographic groups? How do food access patterns differ between rural and urban communities? How does food access vary in counties in West Virginia in comparison to Kentucky? So, the data sources and tools I used include the USDA Food Access Research Atlas, Excel to do basic data exploration, and Python to make visualizations and clean the data. So next, we're going to look at National Geographic patterns of the average low food access rate by state. As you could tell, the counties that have the darker reds are the higher low food access rates. So states like New Hampshire and Alaska have these darker red, indicating that they have a higher low food access rate, while states like Iowa and Washington have a more light color, almost white, that indicate that it has a lower low food access rate. So next, I decided to compare national demographic findings. Um, I started with racial demographics to determine if this played a role in low food access, but it does not. So next, I explored which demographic groups appeared most represented with low food access areas. One major finding was that low income population experienced the highest levels of limited food access overall, and food access challenges were concentrated among low income communities. And this highlights the role of economic inequalities that play in access to food grocery stores. So, next, I did a national rural versus urban analysis. I compared rural and urban communities. So, urban communities are defined as more densely populated communities, while rural areas represent less populated and more geographically isolated communities. This analysis shows noticeable differences in food access distribution. In many rural areas, distance and transportation issues appear more significant, while urban areas showed a clustering linked to poverty and population density. These findings led me to focus more closely on Appalachia and specifically West Virginia. If you look at this graph here, you see that urban, which is indicated in blue, is trending downward. So this doesn't seem to be as much of an issue as rural, which is trending upward. And this was a concern for me as someone that does live in West Virginia. So I decided to do a West Virginia county analysis to compare the different types of stores in West Virginia. So as you can see, there are a lot of green dots and a lot of blue dots, which is this combination grocery other. So things like Dollar General, Walgreens, CVS, and then the convenience stores we all know, like Speedway, Marathon, and other gas stations like that. And those seem to be the dominant dots that we have here. They just kind of cluster at some points. And I broke this down a little further in some of the in a future slide just to make this clearer. I did by the top 5 counties, as you see here. Um, these are the top 5 counties with the highest low food access rate. So we have counties like Gilmer, Pocahontas, Hancock, Berkeley, and Jefferson. And I broke it also down by store count. And as you can see, the amount of stores in a county does not determine if the food access rate is sufficient enough. So as you see, Berkeley County has a lot of stores, but most of them are limited access. So here this shows that people are still not getting what they need. And the farmers market that would have the produce is probably the lowest. Hancock doesn't have any at all. And if Gilmore does, it's this really thin line down here. Most of them just have this other, which winds up being again a Dollar General or a combination store like Walgreens, just something without produce. So next, I decided to break it down by comparing Kentucky and West Virginia. As I've said previously, this um, information is based on population. So as you see on the left, that's West Virginia, and on the right is Kentucky. And they have a lot of similarities. Yes, these numbers are higher, but if you see, they kind of have a similar pattern. So it indicates that maybe if West Virginia did have the population of Kentucky, that it would, um, the numbers would be similar. So this isn't just a West Virginia problem. This is an overall Appalachia problem and possibly a rural problem. So next, I decided to break that previous map down, um, West Virginia counties, by just the top five that we saw previously. Um, so I'm going to leave my PowerPoint currently, and I'm going to hop over to the interactive map so that everybody can see the different type of stores. So as I said previously, if we click on the convenience store that's in blue here, we see all these convenience stores like 7-Eleven, 7-Eleven, lots of 7-Eleven Sheets. Over here, we have more local places, Go Mart, and there's just a lot of them. It seems to be the dominant thing that people rely on in these more isolated areas. So if we also look at the combination grocery store, like I said, those Dollar Generals, those Walgreens, yep, they're all Dollar Generals, Dollar General, Family Dollar. And some of these counties don't have any at all. And then if we look at something that maybe is more beneficial, such as a farmer's market, we see that there's not as many. There's not even any in this county up here that was in that top five low food access. So the demand is definitely there. There are two counties actually located in this particular area, and that also, definitely calls to a need for some kind of more access for the population because the population is kind of in a more densely populated area. I mean, you have places in Maryland as well as, Martinsburg. So it is a very populated area. And one important pattern is the limited concentration of stores within these counties. So these counties contain only small clusters of food retailers, and in some cases, the stores are miles apart. Um, I mean, if you look in here, look how far apart all these stores are. I mean, luckily, this is a more populated area. But if we went over to something like Pocahontas County, we can see that these stores are far away, very far apart. And it doesn't show the mountains, but there are mountains in between these. Um, the map also shows majority of the available stores are convenience stores or small grocery stores, like I've said previously, than full supermarkets. And this affects things like I've said before, about health and overall quality of life. Um, so the counties closer to a larger population have more stores and variety, as represented in the previous charts. And viewing this data spatially helps explain why some of these counties experience this high low food access rate. So, some challenges and limitations of this project were tracking data. Um, I decided that I needed to simplify the data that I got from the USDA food source. And when I did that, I made a couple CSVs and making sure which ones I named were kind of hard to keep track of. So making sure I stayed organized next time for a project. Um, and as I said, I made multiple notebooks too, and I realized afterward that they weren't going to connect. Um, and this led me to run into errors mostly with the spatial maps that I made. And as I said previously, it is a large data set. So cleaning that data, but then also making sure to keep track of it. And I have a bad habit of wanting to make a lot of visuals, and it's great to have a lot of visuals when you have that free time, but when you're on a timeline, it's important to prioritize those visuals and make sure that you represent the correct ones. Um, so with that, any questions? And thank you for your time.